What is up, pimps and players? Ambessa from Arcane has been released in League of Legends. We can have a look at her abilities in the trailer. And I also got my hands on some of the numbers. We can judge some ratios, some base damages, some cooldowns. Very nice. Now I want you guys to do something. Make sure you watch this video until the end so that you can understand some stuff about game design and what thought processes Riot had when designing this character. And what I really think this champion will shine at. What are the reasons to pick this champion, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, because you will not hear, at least I didn't already, from multiple content creators plus the entire community really overreacting in comments, saying that this champion is super overloaded, crazy, oh my god, second Cassante, crazy dashes. I don't think this champion is that crazy, it's completely reasonable, and you'll see why. So just watch this, let's begin. So we can see the passive here. Entering an attack or movement command while casting an ability will cause Ambessa to dash a short distance once the ability is cast. Casting an ability grants her next attack bonus range, damage, and attack speed, and refunds energy. A breath of fresh air here, we got an energy champion. We haven't had one in a very long time, and I think it makes total sense. As in, if you have a look at the kit, it makes sense that it's an energy champion in order to limit it, because, for example, Riva can just spam her abilities whenever she wants, traverse the map super quickly, and if Medarda was able to do that, then it would just be as annoying as Riva's map mobility. I don't think we should particularly have something like... It's just adding a limiting factor to her with the energy, compared to being a mana or mana-less champion. And I think it makes perfect sense with the kit. They probably thought of adding an energy resource to it later on when they saw how the kit unfolded. Maybe not, but that's how I would assume they came to these conclusions. Anyways, we can have a look at some of the numbers here. We got 100 attack range and 50% attack speed. That is a generous amount, so she will definitely be dealing some auto-attack DPS, at least in her initial burst combo. While there's some on-hit damage that scales pretty well with AD, this is similar to something maybe Set would have on auto-attacks. I think Set has 50% every other auto-attack, so this is pretty much the same thing. As long as the target dies within your combo, if it's squishy, I assume. Anyways, whatever, doesn't really matter. And restores energy that scales with level. Interesting here. So it scales with level. Legging gets 70 energy. Not much to see here, let's just move to the Q. So we got the Q. Ambessa sweeps her twin icons in a semicircle full of her, dealing bonus damage to enemies hit by the blades. Showing an enemy will transform the next cast of this ability for a short period of time, causing her to slam the twin dragons down in a line in front of her, dealing bonus damage to the first enemy hit. I already see nice variance and outplay potential with both the passive and the Q. So the passive can allow you to dodge abilities, while the Q, from the enemy side, if you manage to dodge it, you cut a lot out of her power budget, and you also see that this is her main damaging ability. You cannot afford to miss this spell and be useful as Medarda. Thankfully, it seems extremely reliable. Also, it's very short it's very short range. Seems to be 250-ish, 300 at most maybe. And then the line is a bit bigger, but obviously it's quite narrow. So we'll have to see how it feels in game to hit these abilities. You cannot just judge by looking at a gameplay trailer. Anyways, again, there's some variance, some outplay potential into these spells. And it's also showing you that you can use them to dash. There's a clip with a name of Jax. I don't know what that came from Zin is. It's just fanboying, I guess, I don't know. Repudiation. Never seen this word in my life, no idea what it means. It's a bit weird. Doesn't sound that cool, honestly. Ambessa gets a shield, briefly braces herself. You guys remember that meme from like 15 years ago? Brace yourselves! Winter is coming. And then slams the ground to damage nearby enemies. If she blocked any non-minion damage while bracing herself, so towers and monsters down too, apparently, this ability will deal increased damage. What I notice about this spell is that it has a sharp, like metal-ish sound to it, which is very nice because it's just easier to tell both from enemies or allies side if the damage went through. I'm not sure how significant the damage actually is, but that's a nice touch. I like clarity with sound, makes the game easier to play. Anyway, this does look like a dash. Maybe you're thinking, oh, you're dashing forward. No, that's just her passive. It's just the slam is around you. It's like Malphite E, really. Just slam the ground. Anyways, we also have the E now, Lacerate. Ambessa whips her twin greyhounds around herself, damaging and slowing nearby enemies. Initiating greyhound step from this ability causes her to strike a second time at the end of its dash. I'm not exactly sure how this specification works, because how are you supposed to use your E without the passive? You always have your passive unless you have more charges. So maybe if you don't use all the charges, then you don't get a second E. Is that what they're trying to say? Again, just to clarify, the passive, max 3 charges. If you use Q, hit the second part, and then W, you're gonna be on 3 charges. Is that what I'm seeing here? But I don't think that has anything to do with the dash of this ability. I don't know how it works. But anyways, it simply damages slow around you. It could be quite consistent. So right off the bat, if we look at the base kit, we can notice that every single basic ability is a different variation of itself. A circle around you with some effect. Q is damage with damage. It's just a semicircle. Whatever. W is damage around you with a shield. E is damage around you with a slow. So we got damage, 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 shield, and damage slow. CC. Pretty neat, pretty interesting. And then the passive is just dashes so that it makes all your abilities get a small dash. That's a pretty interesting and unique kit. I don't know how they even came up with something like this. Never even played God of War, but this automatically reminds you of Kratos. Now if we have a look at the R, we got Public Execution. Exquisite name, I love it. Perfect. Looks to be a line, engage. Ambessa blinks to the farthest enemy champion in a line of her choosing and suppresses them upon her arrival. I like suppresses, it's nice reliability. She then slams the enemy into the ground where they take damage and are stunned. Which, that you can reduce to the last, you can QSS, you can cleanse, whatever. Okay, so there's not as much reliability, it's not a full suppress. And it functions like Zenith Blade from Leona, which means that you can only hit one target and it can be body blocked by teammates, if they are smart. So it seems to be pretty fast, but it's just an unreliable, weaker version of Voidgrub, or even Yone. Because keep in mind, Yone can just hit everyone. This seems to be pretty easy to hit, pretty fast, pretty reliable. The dash is quite instant. And I think that's the only benefit, really. Yeah, the dash is really fast. Maybe the spell itself is kind of easy to hit, but it's way worse than having a agurin ult, which can just break CC and fear multiple targets. Or, as I said, Y ult. Essentially, it accomplishes the same thing as YR, except that this one you might be able to use it as an escape, but it's so much more unreliable as far as hitting a target goes. Maybe not as much when you play out of the game, maybe people will not play well around their teammates in teamfights. Either way, it might just end up being a similar thing to YR, where it's easy to hit, nice for ganks, nice for catching people 1v1 and stuff like that, and that's it. I don't think this is a crazy ability though, because it's just arguably worse than a lot of other similar spells that are about diving the backline. So in that sense, it can even be worse than a Nocturne arm, which doesn't even have CC attached to it. So, I'm gonna have a look at this clip, and then we can see some gameplay here. But first, let's look at the abilities and their numbers, so we can judge these clips a bit better. We got the passive already, and the Q. The Q has 10 to 8 seconds cooldown. This being the main damaging ability, seems to be decent base damage, does some max health, which I'll explain why it's important later that this ability does some max health damage. But again, the cooldown is quite high, the base damage isn't crazy, the ratios aren't super crazy. There is a ratio on the percentage max health damage, so if she gets really high AD, this damage could actually be pretty nice. But, make sure to screenshot something guys, Poppy does more damage and it's 4 seconds cooldown. Unless obviously you have 1000 of AD, maybe the AD ratio outscales it. At like 200 or something, it's still gonna be a double cooldown anyway. So I'm not sure about that. I don't think you should expect this to deal crazy damage, knowing that Poppy does this type of damage. And yeah, if Poppy deals AD, she does deal quite a lot of damage on her Q, but you can get a rough estimation of what this ability can look like. Again, it's twice the cooldown, and it's probably way easier to hit the first and the second part compared to Poppy Q, which you're not going to hit the second part super often, unless you pin them into the wall, obviously. So there's that. It's definitely a decent ability, don't get me wrong. Now, we have a look at this spell. It's a very long cooldown. So her Q is long cooldown for like a basic ability that you want to spam on most champions, which most of them are way lower cooldown. And her W is also a very long cooldown, 18 seconds on your shield, scaled to 14, still long. And it seems like it's your last max as well, because they made it scale with level. They made it scale with level because they want you to max it less, that would be the only logic. There's also pretty big AD ratios here, and even here, then another AD ratio here. So she seems already to be a bit feast and famine, and gold dependent. She has gold scaling. She's supposed to snowball the game at least a little bit in some sense. This reminds me of Riven already, another champion with very high ratios. I'm not saying that this champion has super crazy ratios, but they seem to be reasonable so far. And this looks like the second max because it goes on a low cooldown. It's a 99% slow decaying over 1 second, which, if it's decaying, it's not that crazy of slow, but it's nice. And it definitely already looks like you're going to be able to set up some Qs, some R with this slow. It's going to be making it guaranteed. The ratio goes up to give her some even more gold scaling as she's going into mid and late game. It doesn't seem like the second strike does reduce damage or something, but it's once again a pretty long cooldown. And this is gonna be also, I thought it's gonna be more utility, but it also is more towards the damage side when you consider everything. So this being 9 and the Q being 8, you can use both of them for some kind of damage. Now it does seem that the energy cost is 70, and the passive refunds 40 to 70. And with these cooldowns being this long, I don't think she's gonna have any energy issues in the early game. It's more when she's gonna start building a lot of ability haste that the energy cost and refund is gonna matter a lot more. I don't think in early game her energy costs really mean that much, because use your Q, okay, 10 seconds cooldown. In 10 seconds, you're gonna regen 100 energy. Plus your passive is gonna give you at least like 40-50 if you autodeck, so there's that. And this does seem to work on minions, just anything. It's not like champion specific or something. Anyway, so R has an interesting passive. Armor penetration and healing. We'll talk a bit more about that later. The cooldown is reasonably big early. Not super big, just higher than the average ult, which is 2 minutes. Lower than Agurin, lower than Vi. So the cooldown is also nice, it's 100 seconds late. Completely fine, you're gonna have it like every minute, because she is already designed to stack ability haste. There's just basically no other way to play her besides buying fighter items that grant ability haste. That makes the most sense. The ratio is reasonably high, and the healing resembles old dantes or something, essentially. Now, if we look at the base kit overall, let's watch these clips as well, we can see that she doesn't have crazy durability or crazy damage, DPS, or even any sort of CC. The only hard CC is on her ultimate, which can only hit one target, that you can't even really choose how to hit, so she doesn't really excel at anything. If we look at this clip, she's playing against Shurelia Blitz, Stridebreaker Heartfiliaso, Static Shift Collateral Lucian, and Zin has like all items as well. Jax had Trinity Force and 2 components. She's very fed here. She has the perfect build to deal with this type of champions, and still didn't do that much. If we rewatch it, these guys are super weak. If you are Aatrox with these items, your HP bar is not moving, okay? You are 1v5ing them. You also have more CC, more healing, more damage. Just less mobility, I guess. And less reliability. You have to hit skill shots. The champion is pretty reliable as far as that is concerned. I'm not sure what's up with that shield. I guess the AD ratio plus the base damage makes for a pretty fat shield, but the cooldown is very long on that shield. Even with all this ability haste and 3 points needed, it was 10 seconds cooldown. And it's interesting that they made her more about the E and made it a good second max. Although who knows, maybe it will end up optimizing W max as well, no idea. If the E spell doesn't matter that much. Although they specifically made it scale well in terms of the damage scaling, so that it's worth maxing second. Anyways, now that we've had a look at the gameplay, guys, and we've understood some of the abilities, let's talk about the kit and why I think that went with in terms of design, and why I think this champion is not gonna be a big issue. It's not gonna be something that people should continue to overreact on. And I really think it's a well-designed champion, and Riot did an amazing job. And no, I do not think it's an overloaded kit. An overloaded kit is something that has too many elements, works in too many situations, works against too many team compositions. I don't think Ambessa is going to be that type of character. In fact, I do think she's quite limited, and she's just gonna excel at some things. Now let's understand her classification. Where does she stand in League of Legends? Well, if you look at her numbers, she's just straight up terrible against stat checking, juggernautish tank champions because her cooldowns are very long and she doesn't have DPS. She's just not going to be great in sustained fights. Really long cooldowns. The Q is 8. You have to bring it down to like 5 seconds with items. Okay, 5 seconds, that's still pretty long. It doesn't deal a crazy amount of damage through armor. Now, has a percentage armor, and we'll talk about that as well, as I mentioned. W is very long cooldown. E is also a long cooldown. And the passive does a bit of damage here and there, but that's tied into the cooldowns. So she cannot by definition be a juggernaut or a skirmisher, even if we didn't know much about the character. Because those champions have really high DPS, that's their power budget. A Master E has really high DPS because he lacks in other areas, or a Yasuo, or a Tryndamere. A Darius, which is another class, Illaoi, Garen, whatever, they have other strengths and weaknesses. But this character is clearly a diver. It's similar to, Xin, Vi, Jarvan, Lee Sin, these type of champions, which don't have the craziest DPS or stat checking ability in the game, but they have nice target access and durability, which she does have. She does have durability, she does have nice target access, and she doesn't have insane DPS. She's a diver, which means that her job is to sometimes hit fighters and tanks and be able to be decent enough at scrapping with them, while also being good enough at reaching the backline from time to time and engaging for her team or killing a priority target with a bunch of bursts. That's what I'm seeing here. It makes total sense. She does have decent burst, she does have decent mobility and target access. This passive seems like it's a lot of mobility, but the dash range looks about 250 to 300 max, maybe shorter than Aatrox, and it's going to be super gated by her long cooldowns and her dependency on this energy resource bar, which will limit her a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit in her ability to freely cast abilities. Think about it. If you use your whole combo, it's going to take 21 seconds to regenerate that energy. So you cannot just freely use this to move around the map like a raven, because you'll have to be preserving your energy for when you get in the fight, or if you are clearing the jungle or something. So in that sense, I think it makes total sense that it's an energy champion. It's a very nice niche by Riot. If they wanted to make an energy champion, this would be a perfect case. It's really every ability is an AoE around you with a different effect and a dash. It's quite interesting, and everything has some outplay potential, some variance attached to it. I really like what Riot has done here. Very interesting. Now let's talk a bit about the R passive. Because as I mentioned before, she's supposed to be target agnostic. And that is allocating her power budget. Does having 30% armor penetration make her necessarily broken by default or something like that? No. That's why Wukong or Jarvan or Pantheon, they are not automatically broken or they have an innate advantage because they have armor penetration in their kits. No, it's because these champions don't have amazing DPS and they still have to hit other bruisers, other tanks from time to time. They cannot just always hit the squishies and have super good target access one-shot someone like assassins do. So the armor pen is needed, the percentage armor pen on a lot of them, because if you look at this character, it has really long cooldowns. So how is she supposed to deal with those type of characters while not making her one-shot squishes? That's the thing with Pantheon. Okay, imagine Pantheon did not have his percentage armor pen in his kit right now. And he would be balanced around killing squishes really fast because his damage on abilities would have to go way higher, at least in scaling. His Q and W have to deal a lot more damage. And that might Pantheon suck too much at fighting people that have armor. And because he doesn't have good target access, Pantheon is often just front to backing with his E and trying to kill frontliners for his team. He's not just ulting the enemy backline and killing himself. That's a bad way to play Pantheon, by the way. Then it would just create a bad experience and a more imbalanced character for both parties, because the Pantheon player will be sad that he's just getting stat checked by every bruiser and tank, while the enemies that play AD carry will be really pissed that Pantheon is one-shotting and maybe even building some sort of toxic lethality build, because that's the only good way to play him. Do you guys understand what I'm getting here? Having this type of thing in your power budget is important because it's moving power from one place to another. This is also why she has percentage max health on her Q, because if she didn't, again, it's the same problem. Maybe they'll have to give it even more armor penetration to be balanced. Now, I'm not saying necessarily have to do it, but having this type of things in your kit is important. Because when she has really long cooldowns, she needs armor pen, she needs percentage max health on her Q. If she doesn't have long cooldowns, then she's too mobile. You see what I mean? There's no way around it. You have to give her percentage max health damage and armor penetration, otherwise she's gonna be too much of an assassin, she's gonna be too garbage at dealing with the average character in League, or she's gonna be too mobile because you made her cooldowns too short to deal with those characters. So this is really, really nice design by Riot Games. They got all of the elements right, and I love it. And then, let's talk a bit about what this character might excel at. What would this character require for you to pick it? Okay, let's just think about it. What is Ambessa Medarda good at compared to Vi or Chipikawa or Hecarim? Well, she is really good against skill shots because of her mobility. It's similar to Velvet Q, right? You can dodge a Lux Q with Velvet Q by dodging to the side. It's almost a guaranteed dodge. You can do similar things with Ambessa. But on the other hand, because of the nature of her kit, she's going to suck against any type of big stat checking or reliable targeted CCN damage, such as Naas, Darius, Udyr, Renekton. Those champions will cause her a lot of trouble. She will not be able to deal with them, especially if she messed up any ability. Especially the Q, because that's the main damage. If you miss the first Q for at least 5 seconds when it's maxed with some CDR, you're gonna be pretty useless. You'll have to try to reposition yourself and play this in and out playstyle, which is sort of intriguing. It's definitely gonna be a little bit more in and out, hit and run. Reminds me of old udyr, rest in peace. That already gets me a little bit excited to at least try this champion, even though I don't like playing divers that much. I don't like having a low DPS champion, and Medard seems to be not low DPS, but you know, it's on the not on the high end of DPS. Anyways, another reason to pick this champion would be her AoE damage. That's a nice niche they added in League where you don't see a lot of champions be focused around dealing AoE damage. Hecarim is a little bit AoE-ish, But he doesn't have insane AoE, I would say. Compared to Medarda, which has 3 AoE basic abilities, seems to be having good AoE overall. And I'm talking about these like diverse space champions. Sure, we have stuff like Ilawi, which does a ton of AoE damage to melee champions. But when you look at Medarda, yes, she does have a lot of AoE, which brings me to my next point, where they gave her healing on abilities. So if you are in a team fight and you are hitting multiple targets, you are getting rewarded for hitting abilities on multiple opponents. You are getting rewarded for your main niche, which is AoE abilities. Now, they could have made her shield a lot stronger, or maybe initially they even had the shield be a lot stronger, but they realized, hey, we can make her more about her AoE and give her healing, nerf the shield, and then she's gonna be similar tankiness, but it's tied more to her hitting multiple enemies. I think this is very, very nice to have in the kit. All of these things scaled. And as I said, just TLDR. This champion is going to be amazing against skill shots. And it's going to offer AoE damage when you need it. That's going to be one of her niches, AoE damage. Other than that, we'll have to wait and see how things land. And for her weaknesses, she is going to be really bad against real stats checkers. Probably even long range things, although she has some decent target access. Generally, champions with mobility will give her a lot of trouble. She's probably going to excel against these more immobile, relatively squishy characters that she can look to burst with her initial rotations. And because of her seemingly high gold scaling with a lot of AD ratios, she can probably one-rotate somebody if she gets fed and uses her passive and everything hits every spell, especially if they're somewhat squishy target. So if you see a low, I would say low mobility team with not so tanky champions, you should probably look to pick this character because you might get a lot of value. I think they created something quite unique. Overall, I like most of the stuff about Ambessa, especially the name R Public Execution. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here and explain everything as much as I can because there are a lot of thoughts and scenarios going through my mind right now where I'm imagining what this champion would do in game and trying to puzzle everything together. But overall, I don't think there's anything too broken. She doesn't have hard CC. Her mobility isn't as crazy as people think because it's just a small dash with long cooldowns. Not that different from Riven or Aatrox, to be honest, but it does have a bit more nimbleness to it, where you can sort of redirect it, dash whenever you want, whatever you want, type of thing. But we'll see how good her gap closing is and everything. Again, I don't think this champion is going to be a big problem for League. The only thing that is very nice is that it has a lot of outplay potential and also some counterplay. Everything has some barriers, some skill check. I already explained that. I'll go over Ambessa more in depth, maybe in another video, because there is just a lot of thoughts. I don't want to make this video too long. We're already over half an hour, where I'm going to do my best to figure this champion out once it drops on PvE, probably tonight. We might even playtest it tomorrow. So make sure to drop a like, a subscribe, follow Twitch, so you can see me playing this champion on 200 ping tomorrow. And that's about it, fellas. Make sure, don't listen to noobs, don't overreact. The champion is cool, it's well designed, it's gonna be balanced. Not sure what the designer is, but they did an amazing job with this champion, and it's going to be a nice, neat addition to League of Legends that maybe a lot of people are gonna look forward to playing. It turns out most of the player base likes playing Lee Sin Viego in this type of champion, so... Well, Viego is not clearly this type of champion, but there are some similarities. Thanks for watching. Take care, bye bye, peace.